Hi, Darklings. Here we are on Moths to the Flame today with Katherine Cat Silva, and we are going to talk all about their upcoming release and the works they've put out before. We've got a small publishing press and all sorts of awesome things that have gone. So thank you for joining us today, Katherine.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Do you prefer Kat? Shall we call you Kat or Katherine?
Yeah, Cat's great.
Okay, awesome. So, Kat is a Maine horror author, a connoisseur of coffee, and a victim of cat shenanigans. I can identify with you there. I am a victim of my dogs. She is a two-time Maine Literary Award finalist for speculative fiction and a member of the Horror Writers of Maine, HWA, and New England Horror Writers Association. Katherine is also editor-in-chief of Strange Wilds Press and Dark Tega Creative Writing Consultations. A sequel to The Wild Dark called The Wild Fall is due out August 3rd, 2023. Very, very exciting. So, Kat, what can you tell us about yourself and how you got into this whole writing horror, writing speculative fiction stuff?
I didn't leave too much unsaid, except for I have been having the debate with myself recently if I can really call myself a connoisseur of coffee anymore, because it has occurred to me that I am more of like a coffee slut. Like I will just take coffee in any form, no matter what. Like
just inject it in your
sugared,
veins.
non-sugared, gas station coffee, whatever. As long as it's coffee, or it's being called coffee, I'll take it.
Wow, I have a confession to make. I feel like people are going to take my writer card away from me. I don't drink coffee at all.
That's okay. That is okay. It's, I like coffee. I think I got hooked at a young enough age that there's no hope for me. But I do really like tea too, and
That's
think
where I'm at.
I think I'm more of a like, I care about my tea more. Like it has to be a certain kind of tea at a certain time. It's got to have all the right stuff in it. So
that's so funny. I love that.
An amendment to the
to the bio,
which is forthcoming. But other than that, I've been writing, I would call it dark fiction, for a while. I started with writing I drew picture books when I was a kid. And that was, they were all about, dogs and cats and everything. But, but then I progressed to writing about haunted houses and things like that. And then I wrote, so I would call them more like thriller, murder, mystery things in high school. And then wrote my first novel in 2010, which was, very vampire focused. So that was
the era we were in. Yes.
Yeah, that was my introduction to dark fiction. And then more recently, I've identified with writing horror specifically, and grief horror and forest horror. Those are kind of my wheelhouse things.
I love that. It's so funny. I actually, her episode is coming out next week, but we had LV Russell here on Moths to the Flame, and you want to talk about some grief horror? You should read The Quiet Stillness of Empty Houses.
Oh God,
what a name. Oh man, and what a book! Like
that's definitely,
yeah. If you like grief horror, and if that's what you write, so I'm thinking like, hey, comp books, that sort of thing. Definitely check that one out. It's really cool, and that episode for Moths, it's coming out next week, and she was awesome. Such a fun one to have on for sure. So, what inspired you to write your latest book, The Wild Fall?
So The Wild Fall is a sequel to The Wild Dark, which came out in 2021. And that book originally started out as this like griefy romance book.
I love that qualifier, griefy.
It's like, because everything is griefy that I write, but this was it was the first time that I'd written something that was romantic forward. And then it totally changed because I really wanted to focus on the relationship between these two characters, most of all as friends, that then, develops into something more in a horror background. And the background was inspired by a video game that I had played back in the day called Limbo, which is a side-scrolling black and white game made by an indie studio, Play Dead. And it's all about this little boy that wakes up in the woods, and you're just basically solving puzzles, platforming, running around, trying not to die these extremely horrible deaths.
That sounds awesome.
It's such a cool game, and people don't really know about it. It's older at this point, but it's very worth watching. I think a lot of the stuff that Playdead has done is really good. Inside is another one that they did that's also very good.
Cool.
They like to play with that ambient, like the very minimalist soundtrack, black and white imagery, lots of sound effects, just
creeping dread, basically.
Creeping dread. And I liked the minimalism that I, experienced from that game. I really have wanted to try and translate that into a story. So not necessarily minimalist in terms of like wordage, but
right.
Just casually throw out wordage.
No, I like it too. Griefy wordage. I love
it. But like minimalist in terms of the environments and the just how stark things are, I guess.
I like that. It's almost like a contrasting, having such deep, visceral, that emotion of grief, which is all consuming. And so by having kind of that minimalist setting that it's in, you can focus more on the psychological aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
That's really cool. I like that a lot. That's really, really neat. So I do have to ask, since you mentioned horror themed video games, have you dipped a toe into the virtual reality horror?
No, I don't have any I don't have any way to play any virtual reality horror because I just haven't gone there yet. But I don't know if I would like it as much. Like I do prefer to be a viewer outside the experience a lot of the time. Like a lot of the stuff that I have experienced has been watching somebody else play. And then I will play it myself later on. But I do like to first watch somebody else play so that I can get everything, get the whole scope of it.
Yes. Okay. So are you the type that reads spoilers of movies before you go watch the movie? I am too. I totally am too.
Yeah.
And I feel awful.
It.
I know it does, but I almost think it makes it more frightening though, because then I'll be like, my God, when is this person going to die? Like, is this the time? Is this what I read about? Is this it? And then it just, I honestly should probably just go into the movie blind, but
it's like, I guess it depends though. Like if I'm really hyped up about something, if I can get there quick enough.
Yeah.
And the anticipation doesn't get too high, I will not ruin it for myself. But if it gets to like a week of not seeing whatever it is, I just can't handle it. Like my panic can't handle it. And I'm like, oh, I'll just check it and I'll see what happens. And then I'll probably forget about it and then go watch it anyway. And in reality, that's what happens the most, I think, because I read it and then I immediately forget what happens.
Hey, that's fine. That's okay.
But it's lessened the amount of panic. So I feel better.
I totally can get that. Because I have major anxiety, thankfully heavily treated now, which is whoop whoop, love that, normalized mental health treatment, people. But like I really struggled, and I wanted to be scared, and I wanted to go see Scary Movie, but I like could not handle it without knowing what I was going into,
Yeah.
So that's really cool. So is the Wild Fall, obviously you explore the theme of grief. Are there other themes or elements that come into that book?
So the biggest themes in the Wild Dark and the Wild Fall are based around the grief horror, but also existentialism, and your role basically in the world and the universe, and then also family, I think, is another pretty big role. Being alone versus finding a group or finding people to depend upon has always been a pretty big role in those books. So the first book was a little more like romance forward. The second book takes place 10 years in the future, 10 years after all the events of book one. So a lot has changed. It's a little more dystopian, less, middle of the apocalypse.
Yeah.
So it's got a different tone. It's a lot quieter and a lot more dread-filled. So it definitely has a different pace than the first
I
book.
love that. And I love that there is such a space now for the quiet horror and the slow creeping dread. And so I think we're so desensitized by movies and media and video games and all the shit that like everybody thinks horror, you say horror and they're like blood and guts and blah, and splatter. And I love some extreme horror and splatter. Like I'm about it, but there is a place and a time for the creeping dread, the slow burn. Sure. Like I like that too. That's a lot of fun. That's very, very cool. So when you go into writing a book, because obviously you've written other books that came out even before these two, what is that process like? Do you just have, the plot kind of falls into your head, or do you start with characters, or what do you do?
Typically it's the characters that pop into my head first, and they marinate, they develop in my brain as the story develops. And usually what happens is I figure out the ending first, and then the story from there is just how do I get these characters to the ending and what happens along the way. And that's the most fun. Sometimes it's hard, but I haven't had much trouble with that with these books. Thankfully, I've gotten just really compelling characters have jumped into my head and stayed there, and they won't go away. Which is the problem now.
Yeah.
Because I just want to write them and nothing else. But yeah, it's all character forward, definitely.
Very cool. Very, very cool. It's so funny how I know pre-writing days, people would be like, oh, the characters will let me know what they're doing. And I would be like, what do they mean by that? And then it's like, oh, yeah, I get it now. Like they literally, I'm like, so, this is how it had to go. Like, this is it, So they're wilding out today. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Yeah. So when you are intentionally trying to create that creeping dread and that sense of like slow pace and really working on the suspense of your books, what sort of techniques do you like to use? A lot of our listeners are writers. And so how do you go about that to make it, to really let a scene breathe?
So my typical writing, typically the way that I get into writing a scene is I have music on. I have some form of music that I can easily get lost in, and a lot of the time it is very repetitive, so it drives other people insane if they have to listen to it for too long.
But is it words or no words, though?
No words.
Okay, good.
No
yeah,
words.
Yeah. Not that there's a wrong way, but like...
Yeah, no. I mean, it's if I was working on something a little more maybe in that splatterpunk genre, it might have words. But where it's the creeping dread and the dark ambient stuff, I like to just have something that feels very, I don't know, staticky, I guess.
Melancholy. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I will put that on, and then I will just kind of zone in. And usually I think the creepiest thing is just putting characters in places that feel very comfortable and familiar, and then adding darkness, adding emptiness and shadows, and basically turning that setting into something that's not familiar anymore. Like, there are a couple scenes where I do use these abandoned, like, elementary schools in both books, actually.
Oh,
And
Lord.
so it's like you're imagining, an elementary school that's empty, that's dark, that is devoid of kids and laughter and just your basic everyday setting. And, the echoes of footfalls in the hallway and no light. What
Makes for a
echoes you
creepy
might hear.
atmosphere.
It really, like, and it's an interesting exercise too, because it, like, draws on specific memories that I have of, like, that time that I stayed after school or whatever, and the hallways were dark, and
Right.
being in I close at my job, so being in a building that is devoid of customers, that's dark, at nighttime, and you're the last one leaving. Things like that a lot of people might not get to experience in their everyday life.
Yes. I love that. And that's funny because I worked at a movie theater many, many a moon ago. Like over a decade ago, before I started my daytime career. And when we would close, and it would be the
Mhm.
whole movie theater completely empty, and all, everything was dark, and spookiness. You talk
Yeah.
about some spookiness. And
Yeah.
even if, like, the movies at the last run are still going, or you're cleaning in another theater and it was like a horror movie, and you can, like, hear it through the walls, and it's
Mhm.
booming, and yeah, wild, super wild. There's an idea. I need a short story to come out of that one.
Yeah.
Rooted in truth, right?
There's something to be said for also, like, adjacent uh quiet settings, like being in a movie theater that is empty while there are
Yeah.
a bunch of people next door, but you're still alone in that
Yeah.
space, and anything could happen in that space and no one would know. It is really, I like that. I like
Oh, I
poking
do
that.
too. Uncomfortable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really exploring kind of that eerie feeling. Of course, some people find solitude in being alone. That,
Sure.
my husband, he would be totally happy in that. He'd be like, no one talk to me ever again.
Yeah.
Like, so I am not that way. I would be like, I would be where the people are. So, um, do you have favorite books that give you a similar type of feeling, or do you just have favorite horror books in general?
I I like a lot of different books. I think I can find and appreciate little things in every book that I read. My favorites aren't necessarily horror books.
That's
Um,
okay.
I like to draw a lot from non-horror genre stuff. I do read a lot of horror now, but I didn't
Yeah, when you
before.
write it, then you get in it. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of my favorite books, like one of my favorite books is Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain, which is,
Oh, yes.
it's a
Yeah.
classic, first of all, but it's also like, man, he could write. He had
Yeah.
a phenomenal uh wealth of memory to draw from, and his language was beautiful, and
Top notch.
he yeah.
Descriptive. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, wonderful book.
Yeah.
Could easily reread that anytime. And another one that's one of my favorites is Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. Read it
I love
so many
that.
times. Like, the tech horror that he wrote, technical thriller that he wrote, and it was definitely horror based, is really well done. That was like one of my first books that I read that I was like, wow, this is awesome. And like so
Yeah.
different from the movie, which was also awesome, but in a different way.
Right.
And then I went on and read a whole bunch of other Michael Crichton stuff, and he was kind of all over the place with his writing, but he wrote very well.
Yeah.
And then and then I also have my books that like I think may have inspired writing some of the darker stuff, the stuff that I discovered in like high school or middle school that I go back and reread just for the nostalgia factor. And
The vibes. Yeah.
yes, the vibes. And Amelia Atwater Rhodes and the vampire series that she wrote is my go-to for the nostalgia. Like, I just love those books. I love them so much.
I love a book that you want to reread over and like, there are some psychopaths out there that do not ever reread books, and I'm like, how? No. I read
Yeah.
my favorite book of all time is not horror. It's Little
Mm-hmm.
Women.
It's a great,
I will
great book.
I love that, and I love Little Men. Like, I love that so much, and I read it every year. Like, it's like a tradition that I do when it starts to get into kind of that Christmassy time. I want to
Mm-hmm.
read Little Women,
Yep.
So, and it informs a lot of my writing too, with that family relationships and societal expectations, and
Yep.
it is very wise, I think, for writers to not only read widely in their genre, but also read outside of their genre, and
Definitely.
really have a good base. I love a good cross genre experience. So,
Yeah,
now I know
definitely.
you're very active with the Horror Writers of Maine, HWA, New England Horror Writers Association. Talk about how being a part of that has been helpful to you on your publishing writing journey.
I The thing is that there are a lot of horror writers. There are several horror writers that live in Maine. Maine is a big state, and we are not near one another, sadly, enough to be able to hang out and do events and really get to know one another. And I think like the Horror Writers of Maine, as much as we try to make schedules work, like I think the people get together maybe like once or twice a year just
Yeah.
because trying to schedule things is so hard. And like this past weekend, I was finally able to get together with our group of, we call ourselves the Wicked Women.
Oh, how
A
fun.
group of women Maine horror writers. We maybe see each other once or twice a year because it's just so hard to get together.
Yeah.
But namely, when I was starting my writing career, I was introduced to the New England Horror Writers, which is a group that covers Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Vermont. And I got to go do events with them, which was really an eye-opening experience because there was no way I would ever be able to afford a table at some of those bigger conventions by myself.
Right.
So it was a
Right.
good way for me to kind of like dip my toe into the selling scene at a convention.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it, and I made friends, lifelong friends with a lot of these people. And then it was also good too because I'm such a loner. Just my, like, I don't like people. I prefer to
A
be
lot
by
of writers
myself.
don't.
Um,
Right?
and, but had I not joined that group, I don't think I would have ever joined the Horror Writers of Maine, the Horror Writers Association, Twitter as a whole,
Yeah.
which is
Social media.
you have to be very social in order to really like sell your stuff and also
Yeah.
make friends in the community. So yeah, it's been really important to be on social media and be a part of these groups and make connections.
Absolutely. And that to me is the cornerstone of my entire writing experience are my writer buddies. I have the Write Squad and the Sprinters group and then obviously HWA and all of the wonderful people that I'm meeting through there. Like that is something that they've been through the valleys with me and like the querying trenches and the shit, and then other
Mhm.
times where I'm like, hey guys, maybe I'm gonna put this out myself, what do you think, like brainstorming. And it's just I love it. I talk with my writer friends every single day, and that is, I mean, it is, I talk with them more than I talk with some of my family, like it's wild. So yeah, super super beneficial. I'm glad that it's been a good experience for you too, because it really
Yeah.
just, what a game changer, what a game
Yeah.
changer.
I think
So
I would just add, I think some of my closest friends now are people that I have met through Twitter, um, in like writers who are very dear to me.
mhm.
So I wouldn't have had that if I hadn't joined.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like our little writer families, which is
Yep.
awesome. And I think that too, I say this probably every single episode of the podcast. Listeners are like, shut up, Marie. But I mean, it really is like a family. Like the
Yeah.
horror community is the most fun community and just so uplifting with each other that
Yeah.
I would put that up against anything. I'm not going
Yeah.
to poo poo on the other genres. However, horror is where it's at. Just saying.
Yes. I
So,
agree.
yeah, tell us about your experience as editor in chief with Strange Wilds Press.
So
How has that
strange
process been?
Yeah, Strange Wilds Press is my own small press that I basically started so that I could self-publish without the label of self-publishing necessarily,
Yeah,
because it is often looked down upon by a lot of people, and I don't know
lame.
why it is
Because
still
it's hard as
looked down upon.
hell.
It's so hard, and
Yeah.
it's so much work, and the people who do it, who run small presses and put out their own books and put out other people's books, like
Yep.
holy smokes, are they deserving of so much kudos. Like
Yeah.
I only put out my own stuff right now. The people who put out other people's stuff and put out their own stuff, like they deserve all
How?
the
You're right.
claps. And it's
Like their
it's like
organization is beyond my wildest dreams.
it's so awesome. I
Yeah.
so like someday I I would love to be able to maybe put out one other person's, I don't think I could ever operate on the level of being able to put out multiple books by different people a year, but I would like to publish at least someone else's book, one a year I could probably handle.
Yeah.
Just with my work schedule and everything else, my day
Right.
job and everything else, I don't, I don't want to ever put myself in a position where I wouldn't be able to follow through. But I would,
Exactly.
I would like to try and do something for somebody else and grow the brand a little bit and grow the publishing company. So, but we'll see. It's who
That's a
knows
great
what's
aspiration to have. I love that.
yeah.
I have similar aspirations. I want to get it really solid grounding for myself
Yeah.
first and putting out my own thing. I mean, I feel pretty confident in it, but I feel like a few books in, then I'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe we'll see. So, and I actually too, I like the idea of being a hybrid author with some works traditionally published and then some works that are, self-published or published through
Yeah.
small press or something like that. I like the idea of having options for different types of work and different types of
Yeah.
writing and that sort of thing. So like right now I'm primarily publishing my their parody ABC books that are for adults.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, the debut is T is for Torture, coming out in
Nice.
August, and it's historical methods of torture drawn with a fun little cartoon character, and it's just supposed to be like, I just call him my little shit, it's just funny. It's just the funny little book. So
Makes me
that
think of a Edward Gorey or something.
exactly, Gashly Come Chinese. Yes, that's it. It's same vein, and I love shit like that. So,
Nice.
but that to me is perfect for small pubbing.
Yeah.
That was not. I didn't even pitch it to large publishers or even agents, anything, because I'm like, that's a me project. That's
Yeah.
something I can handle. So, and I like the creative control that comes with
Yeah.
that part of it too. So that's a lot of fun. So how you've talked a little bit about how you have to make sure that you're balancing that daytime life, writing life, publishing, all of that sort of thing. So how do
Hmm.
you find that you manage that? Do you just have a strict routine, or what do you do?
Uh, I don't have a routine. In fact, I think I am dreadful at at managing uh the balance between all these different things. And that's I say that having uh done not done this for very long. My professional career started in 2010, but I don't think I ever did any self-marketing, or at least did not market well on the early books. And then, when I rebranded and did everything in 2018, I was like, I'm going to change that. I'm going to start to really market my stuff better, go to more shows, be on social media more.
Yeah,
And
do the damn thing.
and while I have done that, I have also mismanaged myself pretty hard. My own needs.
Oh
Just
no.
oh yeah.
Self-care.
I
You gotta
yeah,
have time for the
the
self.
self-care has suffered pretty hard, and I think that that's very easy to do when you are, the book is your baby and it's everything that you care about, and you get to a point where you are just pushing hard, 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 hard,
Mm-hmm.
and suddenly it's encompassed your entire field of view. And
Yeah.
I definitely have gotten to that point, unfortunately, with this book. I got to a point where it was exhausting.
Yeah.
This past month, especially because I had all these issues with Ingram and the printing of the book.
Oh
And
no, what
that was what
happened?
it they started printing early when they
I've
should
heard that
not have.
happens.
And
Mm-hmm.
they printed a bunch of books with the advanced reading copy, interior, and cover.
Oh,
And then, after going through customer service and talking to a few different people, they're like, well, we say that you should have it uploaded 10 days before, but really you should have it uploaded a month before. And
I've
it's
even heard
like,
2 months before. Yeah.
well, that's great. Why don't you put that front and center
Yeah.
instead of saying 10 days?
Yeah.
Because had I known, I would have worked that into my schedule
Right.
of what to have done when, and not gotten locked into the marketing scheme, which is what I've been
Mm-hmm.
moving at full bore for the last 2 months. And that has that's taken over everything.
Right.
It's really hard to switch gears when you are the only person that is running the whole
Running the
press.
show. I
It's
feel
like you
ya.
have to write and you have to market and you have to do the layout and the cover and everything else. And it's like, yeah,
That's a lot.
it's a lot. And then also I made it complicated because I decided to do a whole bunch of other things at the same time.
Of course.
So I had, an audiobook that I was I had two audiobooks that I was working on. I
Oh my
had a
gosh.
special edition hardcover that I was putting together and trying to release at the exact same time.
Oh my gosh.
And then this book, which is just stupid. Like, don't do that. Like,
Listeners, do not. Wait,
just
do it in
don't,
stages.
yeah, don't do it all at once. Like an idiot.
But also, don't put your stuff on pre-order for an entire year or you'll be sick of your book before it comes out.
Yeah, I mean,
oh my gosh.
definitely put it up for give people a chance to find it and
yeah, definitely.
But yeah, year's a long time.
A long time. A long
That's a
ass
long
time.
time.
Yes, it is. So, I think I'm exaggerating. It was more like 9-ish months, maybe 10 months. I don't know. But anyway, it was a long time. It was too long. So I think I'm going to be like a 6-monther from now on, maybe. We'll see.
I was gonna
So,
say, I think I put mine up in March. I think it went up in March.
Do you feel like that was a good time frame?
That was a good amount of time. And then like having that steady ramp up of podcasts and things going on for like the 2 months before to really like engage. Yeah.
I was gonna say you're already working on that goal. I mean, look at you here on this podcast. You've done the Ghoulish Girls, and I mean, you've made these appearances, which can be found on your website. I might add.
Yeah.
So that's you're putting yourself out there, which is awesome. And writers, that's what we have to do because nobody else is going to scream it from the rooftops as much as we are. Even whether trad or self-pub, indie press, anything, everyone has to market themselves. And it's the game is on for everybody. And again, that's the horror community everybody wants to rise together. And I think that's the best thing for any of us. So what do you think are some of the common misconceptions about horror?
Oh, I think the worst is that we're, terrible people who are conspiring to like murder others, which, don't get me wrong, there are people who do piss me off.
They're on the list, okay?
And it's definitely more of a like casual in my job, like this customer's really, really hitting it, like you better watch
They're gonna
out.
be a character.
But like, no, for real, I think that the people in the horror community, whether they are artists, writers, reviewers, are all some of the kindest people that I have met in my life. And the fact that people approach horror writers as though we are, the Nosferatu creeping up the stairs, it is really sad. And a lot of that does come from other people in the writing community who just don't get horror as a genre, or they pretend to get it, or they think they get it, but they really don't. And I think the best example of that is just when people don't know how to include it, and or they kind of engulf it with other genres to sort of make it feel like they're including it, but they're not. That is the speculative fiction umbrella.
Love that.
It's just there's so much to learn and discover and love about horror and about science fiction and fantasy, and all of them individually as their own genres. And it's sad that more don't see that magic and that that interest.
I totally agree.
Certainly, yeah, it's one of the things that I think makes me the saddest, and I wish that we could push past that.
Yeah. I do think that, of late, maybe, and I attribute some of this to streaming services, with there being a little bit of a rise in interest with true crime and with
Mhm.
horror, that people seem to be a little more not as in the closet about it. They're like, "Oh yeah, I actually like this kind of stuff. This is who I am. I like the weird stuff." Um but it's still, there's like this taboo around it where people will be like, "Oh, we'll pitch the book as thriller," and then maybe we'll get
Yeah,
picked up, and I'm like, "It's not
that's
thriller, it is
that's what
horror."
I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like, no, I'm gonna stand firmly in the genre that it 100% is. Like, there's no cloak around it. It is horror. Are you horrified? That's what I'm supposed to do. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah. So what do you feel like have been in this whole process of writing books and promoting books and doing the small press? What are some of your most memorable experiences thus far? Definitely when you were able to go to the convention with your Horror Writers of Maine. That sounds like that was pretty memorable.
Yeah, I think some of my best moments, honestly, like getting becoming a finalist for the Maine Literary Awards the first time back in, I think it was 2013, maybe it was 2012, I can't remember now. But with that book, which I was my first book that I had done everything myself on, um, that was like an eye-opening experience. That was my, like, I can do this. I know that I can put out something that is interesting and quality, and the story is good and it's compelling. Um,
I
so that
love
was kind of
that.
the gateway.
Yeah.
Um, and then probably from there, I mean, it's a lot of my more memorable experiences have been fairly recently. Uh, AuthorCon, my first AuthorCon, which was last year, and meeting people there who I consider to be really good friends now,
Oh,
but who
that's
are
so
also
fun.
really welcoming and opening, just open and lovely. Um,
I was
you
there.
know,
We could have met.
were you?
I was. I sure was in Williamsburg.
Oh,
I sure was. Yep.
were you there this year too?
Mhm. Yep.
Oh, damn.
I know. Usually people spot me a mile away with pink hair, and I'm nearly 6 feet tall.
Seriously? Yeah. No,
Yeah. I'll be
I
there
was
next
there.
year,
Oh, I'll be there too. So we'll have to
and
hang out.
we will, and I'm tabling there too. Jesse and York and I are sharing a table, so
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
that's going to be a lot of fun. And my husband Bert will be there with me too. You can't miss him either. He
Nice.
looks like a big, scary Bigfoot type of man. So I bring my cryptid with me everywhere I go.
That's awesome.
Yeah, love that. Oh my god, I'm gonna have to tell him that now. That's hilarious. I bring my cryptid with me. So yeah, we'll definitely hang out at AuthorCon. That'll be super fun. And I
Yes.
believe they're having another AuthorCon somewhere, like
They are.
Midwesty
It's
somewhere.
at, yeah, St. Louis, maybe?
I'm feeling like it might be. I was gonna say St. Louis, so that sounds right. So somebody comment and let me know, because I don't remember. I've seen it all over on social media, but anyway, lots of awesome opportunities, and I feel like at AuthorCon especially, it's so focused on the writing and the author. I mean, it really
Mhm.
is about the love of books, and
Yeah.
that's so exciting, because so many cons are, horror's like a subset of it, or it's about books, and then there's like the teeny tiny like in a lot of mainstream bookstores, they have one shelf of horror and it's all Stephen King. So
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I love events that we can all be there.
And the thing is, it's such a good charity to support,
Absolutely.
as well. Like, it's like, I don't sell out of books at AuthorCon, you know, but that doesn't matter because I love being able to support the
Right.
charity and then also go and have fun with my
Definitely.
friends. And
Definitely.
that's, of course you want to sell books too, but
No, I
there
totally
are
agree.
dueling priorities, I guess.
Yes. Well, it's mutually beneficial for all parties. And so
Yeah.
again, it's that everybody rises together thing. Super cool. So I know that you mentioned a goal of wanting to maybe publish someone else's work down the line. What are
Mhm.
some of your other goals that you have as a horror author?
Well, I would like to have my work published by other presses, certainly. Other small presses who are putting out some incredible work right now.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's kind of my next natural step, is to work on something that I feel comfortable with putting in somebody else's hands. Um, first finding the right place for it,
Definitely.
um, and then putting it out there and just experiencing that side of publishing. I've had short stories published in anthologies, which has been also a lot of fun. I would like to do more of that, certainly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the next step is just get my work published by some other people, and maybe pursue how to create a little more balance when it comes to putting out my own stuff and making sure that I'm not like losing my marbles at the same time.
Burning out, yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. I understand that. I had that happen with art because I love to
Mm,
paint and draw, and I do a lot of digital media too with illustration, and I had so many commissions for paintings and I loved doing
mm,
that, and I was it was wonderful financially, and it was great and I loved it, but then it started to feel like a chore, and it
yeah.
took the fun creative spark out of it, and I was just like, oh, I have another paint, like I've got to do this painting for so and so, and so then I just wanted to stop it completely, and I didn't even
Yeah.
do any art for almost a year. I mean, I
Yeah.
just went into other creative realms, and so I you got to protect that so that you don't burn out, for sure, because we're all the readers are going to be here, books are going to be here, the
Hmm.
words are going to be there in your mind, you can pull them out at any time. So do you have any are you working on a book that you're hoping to maybe release, or have toying with any ideas?
So currently I have a short story. Well, it's not really a short story. I have a novella that I am going to put out in October that's part of the series also. Um,
Awesome.
and then I have a novel that I've been working on for a long time that unfortunately is just so complicated that it needs like lots and lots and lots of work and attention, which I can't give it right now. Um,
Right.
and then, and I'm also like I think writing comes in phases when you're feeling like working on something, and this
Oh yeah.
thing I'm just not feeling it,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
So then the
Um,
words don't come, for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
I do have an idea for a short story collection that I would like to work on. And that might be my next big thing that I do.
Awesome. And there seem to be a lot of calls for anthologies and collections these days. I'm seeing quite a bit of action kind of in that realm. So, and don't feel bad about your sometimes it's not speaking to you, because the work that is speaking to me right now on, on my life is a cocaine shark. So That's what I'm
nice.
writing currently. It's like Cocaine Bear, but it's Cocaine Sharks.
There
Based
is a
off of.
movie.
Well,
I don't know if you've seen it.
I have.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but I did notice it on
Oh,
Tubi.
it was
So
inspirational for my soul. It was so good. And then I read an article about these actual sharks that are swimming around Florida right now. Like they're
yep.
circling the coast and they've swallowed cocaine from the cartel. And I'm like, oh
Oh,
hell, I need to
jeez.
write. That's the book I need to write. Cocaine Shark. And
God.
now that's not my typical. I
Poor
usually write
things.
gothic, prosy. I know.
Yeah.
And so that's what's speaking to my heart currently is Cocaine Shark. So when it comes, when it is, it is. So I'll just ride the wave. Ha 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 ha. Pun intended. All right, Kat, are you ready for the lightning round of our
I think so.
podcast?
I
Okay,
I
here we
will
go.
answer probably very slowly, but
That is okay. You can ruminate on them. I call it a lightning round. It is never ever fast. Like usually it inspires conversation. It's a whole thing. So, all right, first question up: the Wild Dark or Hollowed Oblivion?
oh God. I mean,
Oh.
they're very different. They're very different books. I mean, The Wild Dark is going to be the one that I say read it. I mean, Hallowed Oblivion is
Okay.
short. That's the thing. Like, they're Hallowed Oblivion is the prequel to The Wild Dark, but it wouldn't exist without The Wild Dark.
That's right.
So, yeah.
Okay, so we're going with Wild Dark. All right. Maine woods or haunted houses?
Hmm. Maine woods. I mean,
Okay. Gotta go with the
that's tough
homeland.
too. That's tough too.
I put thought into the lightning round questions. I try to
Yes,
make
you
them
did.
personal, so they're hard.
You're gonna stump me on a few, I feel like.
Okay. Coffee fueled writing sessions or late night writing marathons?
Coffee fueled writing sessions.
Okay.
I am not a late night writer at all.
Really?
I am an early morning writer.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like my own personal horror story. I could not. I'm a
Right.
right till 2 a.m. type of gal for sure. Okay. So in a horror film or book, cats as blah, 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 cats as companions or cats as creepy creatures?
Oh, as companions, totally.
Of course, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, psychological horror or supernatural horror?
Hmm. Pardon my French.
Well, how many curse words have I said on this podcast? A bajillion. It's okay.
Wow. I mean, I'll go for supernatural horror, but that's a close race there. I really like writing psychological horror too.
It's fun.
So,
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Another unanswerable. The Wild Fall or the Wild Dark?
Still The Wild Dark.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Good deal.
There's it's tough because there are some things about the sequel I really do like over the first one, but there is something to be said about like it's the first in the series, it is the establishing,
Right, definitely. It's like the king of the castle. So, okay, writing in silence or writing with atmospheric music?
the atmospheric music.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. Okay, ghostly apparitions or demonic possessions?
Ghostly apparitions.
Almost everybody says that. I haven't had anybody say demons yet when I've asked a demon question. Okay. Exploring the unknown or facing familiar fears?
Like I went on about like familiarity and making it scary earlier, but I like there is something to be said about, like, I do like writing characters who are exploring unknown spaces too, and I feel like I like writing that more.
Okay.
So that's
tough,
probably
though.
what I'm gonna say.
Okay. With another close second, right?
Yep.
Okay. Horror short stories or horror novels?
Horror novels.
All right. Some
Yeah.
people are firmly in short story land, and some people are in novel land. I'm a noveler myself. I
Like,
wish that I wrote more short stories.
I will admit, I wish that was something that I was better at. And
Me too.
I have written some short stories. There's a group that I'm a part of that writes short stories like you would not believe. Like, these people knock these out so fast, and they're all really good.
Oh,
And I
I
like,
envy that.
I wish I could write like some of them do. It's just remarkable. They're so good.
Well, and I think too, they hone their skills. They're able to just bust it out so fast. And
Yeah.
I start with an intention of being a short story, and I'm like, oh, but what a novel this would make. Like,
Yes.
let me draw
That's my
this shit
problem
out.
too.
Yeah, yeah. And you would think it would be easier, that you would just be able to like wham bam, but it's not that way. I'm like, I'd
No.
rather make this a whole ass book. So totally get that. Okay. Writing rituals or spontaneous bursts of inspiration?
Hmm. Spontaneous bursts of inspiration.
Those are more fun.
They're more fun. Also, like, I'm terrible about trying to do the same thing every day. I just can't. Or do the same circumstances. It
All right.
doesn't happen.
Right. Okay. Cosmic horror or classic vampire tales?
Cosmic horror.
Oh, I'm
I
actually
do
surprised by that.
I do enjoy vampires. However, I have gotten into reading cosmic horror more recently, and I really like it more, I think, just as a, like, the the idea of the unknown, and the existence of other universes, and I really like it better.
Yeah, that's cool. It's a neat perspective because it's like super unpredictable too,
Hmm.
So, very cool. Okay. Do you prefer the adrenaline rush of a jump scare or the slow build dread of suspense? And that could be experience
Definitely,
or writing.
definitely the slow build dread of suspense. Like,
Awesome.
I
Awesome.
like a jump scare if it's fun. That's
Hmm.
like, if it's fun, I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
If it's just there to, like, try and, I don't know, just to be there, then
Yeah.
I don't
Just
care.
gratuitous jump scares.
Yes.
I I like a jump scare in a book. When people can effectively pull that shit off where it's like, "Whoa,"
Hmm.
and you're like immediately taken aback. And because I think too, as seasoned readers, for so long, usually we see the ending coming, or we like, you see what's about to happen. But when somebody can legitimately have me go, and like be shocked about something in the book, I'm like,
Yep.
I applaud that shit. I love that. So I
Yeah.
prefer a jump scare in a book, but in a film, I like the creeping, the slow, the suspenseful
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. So, okay. Final question of our lightning round: podcasts or audiobooks?
Oh, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, honestly. Like, really the only ones I listen to are the horror book podcasts, like
Right.
this one. But I don't like, I think, God, the last time I tried to listen to a podcast was like Old Gods of Appalachia. and I didn't stick with it.
Yeah.
Like the horror short story type podcast.
Yeah, like the serialized stuff, like creepypasta type things.
Yeah. But like a good audiobook, I can dig it. I can really get into it.
Very cool. My husband too. I wish I was an audiobook reader. I am not. I like a conversational podcast though, where I'm learning something, and true crime podcasts too. Those I fall into those hardcore.
Nice.
So awesome. Okay, so tell our listeners, Kat, where they can find you out in the ether. Where can they find you online, on social media?
So I am basically everywhere.
Good.
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, whatever we're calling Twitter now.
Oh Jesus.
Threads, Blue Sky, TikTok, Pinterest, YouTube, all of it.
Hell yeah. All the places.
All the places.
Awesome. And is that Kat Silva on those places, or Katherine Silva?
It's Katherine. Yeah, you're going to find me as Katherine on all those places.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. And your, the sequel to The Wild Fall the sequel to The Wild Dark, The Wild Fall, releases in 2 days, I believe, at the time of this recording. We're recording on August 1st. So by the time you're listening to this, it is out, and you need to go buy it immediately. So they can pick it up online. Where would they find it? Probably Amazon, maybe Barnes & Noble.
Yep. You can find it pretty much everywhere. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, your local indie bookstore, if you want to order from them, support local bookstores.
Absolutely.
You can buy it.
And libraries too.
Libraries
can order it.
Yeah, libraries too. You can find it straight from me on my website, which is KatherineSilvaAuthor.com, if you want a signed copy.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, we'll definitely keep an eye out for that. Thank you so much for coming on the pod today, Kat. It was wonderful chatting with you.
Oh, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Next time we have you back, I'll check in and see if we've met any of our goals, right?
Sweet. Yes.
Awesome. All right, guys, let's fly to the flame. Thank you.